So what I want to do is introduce you guys to Laura Patterson. Laura is the president of Vision Edge Marketing, founded in 1999, just a couple of years running her own thing, a couple of years before I started mine. And she helps companies take a customer-centric outcomes-based approach to organic growth by enabling them to use analytics, accountability, alignment, operational excellence to attract and retain and grow the value of customers. Now, she's got a lot of accolades, man. I mean, she's got a patent. How many people do you know that's got a patent? That's a rare thing. She's published 4 books. She's been inducted to the Customer Experience Hall of Fame. She's in the top 30, top 20, top 100, 200, or 20, all of that. To just say, I've had multiple Zooms with Laura as we've been discussing this topic, and I come away with the fact that she really does know her stuff and can back it up with data. And honestly, that's kind of a rare experience in today's world of marketing guessing. So she brings a perspective toward measurement that I found unique and thoughtful. These insights she's going to share, I think, will confirm or challenge some of your viewpoints, especially when communicating to leadership about the value of marketing. So our goal here today is that you are much better equipped to have that conversation with leadership about the value of marketing. So we want to welcome Laura, and I am going to make you host so that you can share your screen as appropriate. Welcome, Laura. We're really glad you're here today.
Thank you. And I'm excited to be here too. It's always nice to be with what I consider colleagues. All of you are colleagues. You know, we're all trying to do the same thing, grow the value of our companies and demonstrate that we're making a difference to the companies we work for and with. So I'm going to share my screen in a moment, but I just am curious, how many of you are going to be moving into planning season for 2024? Okay. So I think some of this might be relevant considering that we're moving into 2024 planning for a lot of places. And that's a big part of the work we do. So it's around planning because it's going to be instrumental in helping you do a better job on the accountability side. So I just want to kind of plant that seed as you're thinking about your plans. This might be a way to begin to enhance what you're already doing, because we find a lot of people are starting the process. And then when they talk about accountability and measurement, it's almost like, oh, I just don't have time. But you do, because you can integrate it into planning, and that will make your life so much easier later. All right, so this is something to think about. So I am looking for share my screen. I see all of you. And here's this. So can you guys see my screen? Yes? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm leaving it in non-slideshow mode intentionally, because if I go into slideshow mode, I don't see any of you. And I like seeing you when I am talking. So let's see if we can keep it where I can see you. If you're having trouble, let me know, okay? Mm-hmm. All right. So we're going to talk about performance management. Let's see what we all think performance management is. I want this to be interactive. I know you all are used to having your mics off, but it's okay. Let's just talk with each other for a moment. What do you think performance management means? Anybody? Okay, I was a teacher way back when, like 40 something years ago. So if you don't chime in, I'll just pick whoever I see on the screen.
Do it.
Yeah, I think for me, it's really, optimizing your campaigns to the numbers, or managing your marketing schedule to the numbers of, the analytics.
Okay. Jada, what do you think it means?
Do you want us to just chime in, or are you going to respond? Sorry.
Oh, I'm going to just let you guys talk.
For me, performance management is setting goals. So we set goals and then we measure to the goals, and that's how we know how we're doing.
Okay. Anybody else want to jump in? Those are good. Both of those. Anybody else? Okay. Well, let's go talk about it. It's a process. So first of all, I want to help you understand that we are talking about a process. And here's something to know. All businesses run on processes. Processes are the backbone of every organization. You can't have an organization be successful without processes. And marketing is full of processes. So one of the things that Drew may or may not know about me is that I spent 14 years inside Motorola in the semiconductor business, which is, if you all are history buffs, Motorola is the father of Six Sigma. And Six Sigma is all about process. So process mapping is a big part of my life. I could learn to do process mapping in my sleep. And everything in marketing should be able to be process mapped. All right. So it's the process of measuring progress. And to Dana's comment, to achieving key outcomes and objectives in order to optimize performance, whether that's for us as individuals or for a group like our department or our function like marketing, or organizationally at the corporate or enterprise level. All right. So that's the total definition of performance management. It's an entire discipline. There are entire disciplines dedicated to performance management. And here's the thing, it takes rigor, right? It really is something that is not that easy to do. And you have to kind of be conscientious about doing it. Now, there are companies that have performance management systems in place, formal ones. And there's been a lot of people who've done research around performance management and what it means to the bottom line and what it means to the company. And here are some things that they have been able to learn. Companies that have performance management and have a system for doing it, they outperform companies when they are, in terms of customers entering the consideration phase. So if you want more customers in the consideration phase, this is really important. So I don't know how you actually look at your customer journey. There's all different, there's the AIDA method, the funnel method. We happen to talk about the 6 C's, and consideration is right before consumption. So if you want people to have a higher rate of buying your product, which is consumption, you need to have a lot of people in the consideration phase. And these companies have higher performance ratings in some key areas: sales growth, market share, and profitability. And those are 3 financial measures that the leadership team of almost every company looks at. All right, sales growth, market share, and profitability. And people with high performance management ratings do better in all 3 of those. Here's the thing we've learned in our research. So since 2001, our company has been doing formal research in the area of marketing performance management. We're pretty much considered the pioneers there. Our work has been published in peer-reviewed journals like the Journal of Applied Marketing Analytics. On the last study, which I'm going to share some results with you today that will maybe be helpful, was published in not quite a year ago.
I'd just like to chime in. You are going to get that link, and that study.
I will. You all don't have to worry about. Yes,
worth looking at that. I just want to reiterate the fact that you are building on a foundation of data that's just really valuable.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Drew. Okay, then here's what we know about the corner office. And when we refer to the C-suite or the corner office, we're talking about the CEO, the COO, the CFO, the chief growth officer, the chief strategy officer, the chief revenue officer, all those people that we all end up having to kind of report to, right? So they want to understand the value, impact, and contribution of any part of their organization. And that includes, of course, marketing. So if we do it well, which is why you're all sitting here today, you get better alignment to what matters to your organization. And this is going to be critical. We're going to talk a lot about that. You'll be able to communicate value and impact. You're able to have more confidence in decisions and the recommendations that you're going to make, because you're going to make a plan in 2024. And I'm sure your plan is going to include a request for money. Is anybody making a plan that is not going to include a request for money? Raise your hand if there is no money request. Oh, everybody is going to be requesting money. Fancy that. Okay, so if you're going to ask for money, you want them to say yes, and you have got a better likelihood of getting a yes, which I'm sure you all will want, if you can show the value, all right? And then increase credibility. So those are the things to why we're spending our time on this today. I want to back up for just a moment because that's going to make sense as we go forward, why this is a very important truth. Okay. So I have a couple of things that I call truths, and this is one of them. If you haven't read a book by Peter Drucker, I highly recommend that you do read a book by Peter Drucker. I happen to like The Principles of Management. He is pretty much considered the father of modern management. And he said, the purpose of business is to create a customer. I mean, where would we be without customers, right? So that is the purpose of business. Seems so obvious, but it's amazing how we can lose sight of that when we are in the thick of battle, so to speak, right? Mm-hmm. The second truth is also from an important author that I have a great deal of respect and admiration for, Phil Kotler. And he's pretty much considered the father of modern marketing. And if you have not read a book by Phil Kotler, I know we're just about out of summer vacation reading time, but grab a book by Phil Kotler, Kotler on Marketing, and he talks about the role of marketing. And he says the role of marketing is to find, keep, grow, find, attract, keep, and grow targeted customers by creating and delivering superior customer value. So you can see that there is a very tight relationship between the purpose of business and Phil Kotler, the role of marketing, which is why Drucker said the only two things that really matter when it comes to business are marketing and innovation. And we've kind of forgotten that, but that's the two primary things. So in marketing, every business, essential engine for growth. You cannot grow if we do not have good marketing, all right? So when you are looking, and it was Dana who said, oh, her victory was 30% growth. Awesome, that's phenomenal, congratulations. So we need to be able to show how what we are doing in marketing is actually contributing to growth, right? And to customer value. I want you to listen to what I just said, growth and customer value, okay? Those are going to be two important things. So if you're looking at your measures today and you're not really looking at growth and customer value, that might be something you might want to think about. How can we connect the money we're spending and the work that we're doing, the effort and energy that we're expending, right, to customer value and growth? So we're going to talk a little bit about what best-in-class marketing organizations do. And you can find this data that I'm going to share with you on our website. It's free. Of course, you will have to tell us who you are, but I know who all of you are because I've already connected with most of you on LinkedIn. So you will have to put it in. You can use this fancy code that my team was dabbling with, or just use the link. But if you go there, you can download the entire report, and it's all for free instead of having to go to like a journal to download it. Okay, I have a question for you. On a piece of paper, while you're next to your desk, thinking about this question, on a 100-point scale, what number would your C-suite, that is the CEO, the COO, the CFO, the CRO, the CGO, any of those guys, anyone but the CMO, what number would they pick on this 100-point scale for the marketing organization for its ability to demonstrate its value and contribution to the business? So actually quantifiably prove the value to the business in things that matter to the business on a 0 to 100-point scale. Okay, take a moment, put your number down. Think about it in their entirety. You know, they may be slightly different. You know, the CFO may have a different number than the COO, than the CEO, but try to think about it in an aggregate fashion. What would that number be? Everybody got their number? Okay, and all those mics are on mute, so either yes or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah? Yes. Okay, all right, thank you. All right, good, you got a number? I'm gonna tell you that this is a question we have been asking since 2001, and we have a lot of interesting information about this number. All right, so over the years, we've been able to identify 3 marketing organization personas that are tied to this number. And then we're going to tell you what these people that get the highest numbers do differently and better than their peers. So the first group are those that get anywhere between 90 and 100 points in an aggregate fashion. All right. These we call the value creators, and they are the best in class or the leaders of the pack. And what distinguishes them in general, their persona in general, from the other two is that they are really focused on strategy. You know, they have a very strategic focus on creating growth and value for customers and the organization. And their measures say that. So when you think about their measures, they're all tied to this, okay? The sales enablers are the group that get between 80 and 89 points. And I'm not going to put anyone on the spot and ask you what you think that number is going to be. You just use this information and to however will best help you be more successful. So this is the middle of the pack group. And what is interesting about this group and what is the perception of this group is that they see themselves predominantly in service to the sales team. Their customer is sales. So if your organization thinks that marketing's job is to support sales or to enable the sales team, you're probably a sales enabler, okay? Right? If you think your marketing organization is there to support the sales team, you might be a sales enabler. And they're primarily focused on the funnel, on pipeline and lead generation. Now, the value creators are too. I'm not going to say they're not, they are. But in addition to being focused on generating new demand and new customers, they are doing some other things, okay? The last group, and in a moment I'll show you how these groups break out, are known as the campaign producers, and they are the laggards among these three. And they get 79 or less points. So I don't know if any of you have children. I'm assuming some of you may have school-age children. We're almost back to school here in Texas. And, you know, I know a lot of folks who are not happy when their children come home with points, you know, grades that are under 70, right? How many of you are okay if you have children with scores under 70? Okay, so think about it from that perspective. Not only do they see themselves in service to the sales team, they see themselves predominantly as an internal agency as well. So they are an internal agency, right? And the way to think about them is 1-800-marketing. 1-800-marketing, I need a new event. 1-800-marketing, we need a testimonial. 1-800-marketing, we need a news brochure. 1-800-marketing, we need a new email campaign. 1-800-marketing, we need a new advertising campaign. You get the idea? 1-800-marketing, that is what the campaign producers are really focused on, okay?
Laura, I'd like to, before we go to the next slide, if you can go back to that previous one, I'd just like to ask the group, did everybody follow that? Because are you seeing where this is not about you, even though you might be the only one in marketing. It's about how your marketing organization functions in the organization, in the broader organization, and how you're seen by the C-suite. Does anybody have any questions about these categories as you try to figure out where you are? For Laura, are you all on board with where she's at? Any questions?
I think the questions will come later. This
okay.
is all right. Good. I find the questions come a little bit later, okay. and I do want to hear them. So this part is not that hard to grasp. Here's what we do know. And this data goes all the way back, but I just pulled from 2013 on. And what we can see is how many marketing organizations fall into which persona. So about 30% of marketing organizations fall into the value creators. And it's been a pretty consistent group, right? We had some dips, we've had some dip downs, but 30%. About 34% fall into the sales enabler camp, right? And you can see that in 2015, a huge number of our sales enablers landed in the campaign producer category. That's what caused that huge spike up in 2015. And we know what caused that. We have a lot of data around what caused that. And it's really related to technology. And we can come back to that if you guys are interested. And so then you can see another 37% fall into the campaign producers. So pretty even group of camps of where marketing organizations fall. It's not like there's a huge preponderance of one over another. The problem is that the number of sales enablers and campaign producers isn't shifting a lot, all right? That's really the message here. It's not that they're broken out evenly. We want to see more people in the value creator camp than in the other camps. That's what we really want to see. All right. So they grew a little bit, but they're not growing enough and they're not growing fast enough. Okay. Let's talk about what they do. I want to share some statistically significant characteristics that differentiate the value creators from their colleagues in big ways. So there's three main things that are different about them. And they're there's what we would call statistically significant in the world of data. One is their use of data, how they use the fact that they use data and how they use the data. And you can see how different that is between the campaign producers and the value creators, right? Now, the sales enablers are using data, but it's all typically around campaigns to drive pipeline, okay? Performance management, the conversation we're having right now, they are much more passionate, considerably more passionate about performance management than either of their counterparts. And you can see campaign producers, 9.7%. It's not a very good number. And then customer centricity is the third area. So you can see three primary areas where they are what we call more effective. They are more effective. Now, there's still lots of room for improvement, but compared to their counterparts, significantly more effective in these three areas. And as a result, one of the things we look at is what's the benefit? Why bother? Because this is not easy. I'm going to be really honest. This is not easy to do. And it's, you know, we have, who was it? Was it Jillian that talked about, you know, how full the plate is already? Can you try to imagine putting this on top of that? So you have to have it have a reason to do it. And here's the reasons to do it. They have, value creators have significantly more influence over business decisions. Sorry, guys, something's at my front door. Mm-hmm. They are significantly better at demonstrating business acumen. They have way more credibility in the organization. Who wouldn't want that? Who among us individually wouldn't want that? They're able to do a better job of proving their relevancy to the organization, which actually pays off in money. And they are able to facilitate better strategic decisions. And not only do they, so that kind of ties to the top one. They facilitate better decisions and they have influence over those decisions, if that makes sense, right? So decision making is a big difference between value creators and their counterparts. Now, this is on a scale of 1 to 10. So you can see that they're not earning 10s either, right? They don't have a 10, but compared to their campaign producers, right? So the campaign producers are down in the 4s. The sales enablers are at a 6, so that's 60 out of 100, right? And the sales enablers are pushing up into the B range, okay? Does that make sense to understand this data? Okay, so I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm admitting up front, what I'm about to share with you is not easy to do, but it has real merit to your organization, to your department, and to your career if you can do it well. Okay, so we already know that there are 3 things in the performance management space. So we said that value curators are better at 3 things, one of which is performance management. And in the performance management area, there are 3 things they do differently than their counterparts. You following me? Everybody with me so far? Okay. First, they know the measures that matter. This is an important thing. And then I will tell you a secret. I will give you a secret sauce for how to get to that if you'll be patient with me. They create better dashboards. So sometimes because we have so much technology today, we have gotten quite comfortable clicking on a button that says dashboard in our technology. That is not the dashboards of value creators. That might be the dashboard of a sales enabler or the dashboard of a campaign producer, but that's not what value creator dashboards look like. And the third thing is they have 3 tools that they use. One is called metrics chains, and I will show you what those look like. The other is a data inventory. I will tell you what that is. And the third is a metrics catalog, which is really important, and I'll explain that. Okay, so let's just quickly talk about those. A data inventory is exactly what it sounds like. It is some kind of database that you have created that identifies all the data elements, every data element, where it is housed, where is it kept, how frequently is it updated, what is the source of that data, who owns that data, right? So it's a very clear understanding of the data that is available to your organization, all right? A metrics catalog is a database, for lack of another of a term, that has very clear understanding of what are the measures and metrics that we use, how are they calculated, what is the formula or equations, what are the variables, where do those variables come from? Those variables probably come from something in the data inventory. Who is responsible for managing it? How often do they track it and update it, right? Those kinds of questions, right? Those are two really basic things that they have at their fingertips. And the last is metrics chains, and we'll spend more time on those in a moment. So we'll come back to that because that's really a secret weapon. So I'm going to give you a recipe and a weapon, okay? All right. So we talked a little bit about the data inventory, talked a little bit about the metrics catalogs, and we're going to talk about the data logic chain. So just to repeat, data inventory, where is the data? Who has access to it? How often is it updated? What's the source? All of that. Metrics catalog, what are the measures? How are they calculated? Where are the variables? Where are they reported? All of that. And then data logic chains. And what you can see is that the value creators, which are these guys, do a better job, right? They have these tools. But look at our campaign creators. No tools, no chains, no metrics catalog. And the sales enablers, they kind of have a data inventory. They've gone a little bit better, half and half. Not so good on the metrics catalog, and not so good on the metrics chains. Okay, so everyone's understood pretty much. They got to know what their data is and where it is and its sources and things like that. But you can still see how many people don't have what they the right a tool around that. Okay, all right. So I want to make sure that we have an agreement, all right, that we are using the same terms around 4 important words: data, measures, metrics, and KPIs, because a lot of people use those 4 words interchangeably, and they are not the same thing, okay? Before I jump into that, any questions? Are you still with me? Okay, all right. Hard to tell. That's the challenge of this. This is better than nothing, right? It's certainly way better than the old-fashioned just conference call. You can't see anybody show anything, but I like in person still for this kind of thing better. All right, here's what I want to show you is think about data as the main category, right? That everything sits on. It is basically a piece of information. So if you have a country code or a zip code or an SIC code attached to any of your data, that's what it is, right? So I'm looking at Sarah. Sarah, your hair, is that, would you put that in the brownish reddish category? Right, that's a piece of data, brownish reddish category. Howard, I'm looking at you, you're in the no hair category, right? Now, I'm using this intentionally, right? I've got a piece of data that says Sarah's hair is brownish red and Howard's no hair. Right now, that is just data. It is useless information other than the fact that I can personalize something for Sarah and for Howard, right? But it's only data. It's not a measure, right? There's no measurement there, just data. You agree? All right. Now, a measure is a quantity. So there are 2 kinds of measures, things that we can control and things that we can't. So like how tall we are, we cannot control that, right? How many companies are in a particular SIC code? We cannot control that. We can count them, so we can quantify, we can measure the number of potential prospects in an SIC code, but it's not in our control. In our control might be our weight, all right? So the number of companies in a vertical, the number of customers, the number of partners, the number of orders, site traffic, these are all kinds of measures. Some of those we have more control over than others. We have some control maybe over site traffic, some control, right, over number of customers, number of partners, number of orders, in that we can motivate and encourage and increase engagement to derive those numbers. But the number of companies that are in a particular vertical market, not in our control, okay? Now, I can also go back and look at my data and say, well, how many people in my database have reddish brown hair? And the moment I count that, I have taken a piece of data and I have made it potentially become a measure. I don't know what value it is, but it's a measure. And I can look in my data and say, how many people in my data have no hair? Now I have two measures, right? Right now, no value, but I have two measures. Now down the road, I may want to be looking at the behaviors of people with no hair and the behaviors of people with reddish brown hair, and I might be able to create some information that would help me make decisions from that. But in and of itself, measures are typically not very helpful. So when you look at what you report, right, this is why this is important. Most people report on measures. They think they are a metric, but they are not. They are just a measure. Okay, with me?
Yep.
All right. Next category. Now we're getting to something important. And this is, again, remember when I said that the best in class measure what matters? They begin to look at metrics. And a metric is a standard of performance. And usually it involves a calculation. It takes a variety of measures and does some kind of calculation to determine whether or not it has meaning to the business. So conversion rate, usage rate, new product adoption rate. I think it was Amy who said that you're going to be bringing out a new product. Did I hear that, Amy? So product adoption rate would be an amazingly great metric for that. I don't know whether you guys track product adoption rate when you launch a product or have that as a metric of performance for marketing, but that would be an example of moving from a measure to a metric that marketing would be, marketing should have something influence over. KPIs, which people use a lot. You say, oh, I have a KPI, or our KPI is this. Most people do not have KPIs. Organizations might have a KPI at the big level. There may be a functional KPI, but they are typically far and few between. They're relatively rare. They are very special metrics. And the way to think about them is how much money will you spend in order to change that number? That is the best way to think about a KPI. So category ownership, you might be willing to spend a lot of money to change your position in a category and own a category, right? How about customer footprint expansion at getting more business inside a particular customer, or even share of wallet? Two different measures, both customer measures. Market share, right? Those might be KPIs, all of which marketing might have a role in changing and might have to put some money in to the game to change. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, that's a great insight.
Okay. So that's why I'm sharing this with you, because look at our value creators. They are way better and they are getting better. So they kind of bounced around. They had a really bad period of time way back here, but they figured it out. They figured it out and they got an 8.6 out of 10 in this last piece of research on being able to get the right measures and metrics in place. In fact, they know how to link metrics to the business. They're 4 times more likely to earn a score of 8 or higher than their campaign producers, and 2 times more likely to do it than a sales enabler. And look at our sales enablers, and look at our campaign producers. They need help. They need help. We need to help them. Okay, all right. So this is a big deal. People are measuring. Data is coming out of people's ears. They are measuring gazillions of things. And the more they do it, the worse they're getting.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Look at this. Oh, wow, that's painful. Okay. Now, what do they measure? So what I'm going to tell you is that value creators measure all the same stuff that sales enablers and campaign producers measure, but they measure things that the campaign producers and sales enablers don't measure. So they're all good at measuring activity. In fact, value creators are really good at measuring activity. Value creators are way better at looking at operational measures and metrics. Everybody cares about the money, what they're spending. These guys do look at that money a little bit differently. Look at this leading indicator types of measures and predictive. Oh my gosh, the sales enablers they're supposed to be able to predict and forecast pipeline. Oh my goodness, right? But everybody's struggling here. Output and then outcome. Look at this number. Look at this number. So if you want to make headway in the world of performance management, this is where to make it, right here. This is the pivot, right here at the outcome level. And that's what I'm going to teach you, show you, explain to you what you pick a verb, and I will help you do that. Okay? Right here. Now look at our poor sales enablers. Even the campaign producers are better than them at this. Okay, so metrics chains are your secret weapon. All right, that is the secret weapon of the value creators. And you have to build a chain. You start with what the organization must achieve to declare success, not revenue, not profit, not a sales number, but actually the outcomes that have to be achieved that will make those numbers possible, right? And I'll give you some examples in a moment, right? The leadership team, you have to ask the question for marketing, what do you expect the marketing organization to do to help move the needle on an outcome? So outcomes are at the organization level, and they require a minimum of 2 functions to achieve. Could be marketing and sales. It could be sales and customer success. It could be marketing, sales, and product. It could be any number of functions. 2 or more functions must be required in order to achieve an outcome. And in marketing, the next question will be, what is it you expect the marketing organization to do to help move the needle or achieve that outcome? When you get the answer to that, you are on the beginning of having an objective. So think about your plans. If you're thinking about building a marketing plan and it's going to have objectives, those objectives need to tie directly to an outcome. And value creators know how to do that really, really well. And the third question you want to ask, and this is going to be in your hip pocket, is how will you know marketing did? All right. I'm telling you, write these questions down. Write them down, because these are the 3 most important questions. First question that you ask the leadership team, if you don't know the answer, is what does our organization have to do in order to declare success? What are specific, ideally customer-centric outcomes we must achieve as an organization in order to declare success, to reach our revenue number, to reach our profit number, to reach our sales number? Second question, what is it you expect the marketing organization to do to help achieve that outcome? Third question, how will you know we did? Okay, 3 questions. Don't write a plan until you have the answer to those 3 questions.
Can I ask a question about the questions?
Sure, of course.
If I ask my leadership team, what do you need the marketing team to do to contribute to our outcomes, because we've got set outcomes, they would look at me and say, I don't know, what do you need to do?
Okay, great, Sarah. Good. I think that's perfectly fine. And so when you hear those outcomes, take a step back, come up with what you think those objectives ought to be, and get their buy-in for that. Okay. Don't write the plan until you have it. So they may not know. They may not know, but you can give them some ideas. It could be this, and I'll give you some examples, okay? That's a great question.
I'll chime in there. you're going to get a lot of breakdown when you transition from question 1 to 2 and 3. Also, do you have any, I guess, input on, possibly like creating an atmosphere that isn't best for the marketing and sales system? I mean, if you ask them what marketing needs to do, what if it's not in the best interest ultimately? Because as we know, leaders and senior, management sometimes have outlandish expectations of marketing, or just kind of off the mark definitions of what marketing is. So do you have any input on maybe navigating, some responses that we know as lifelong marketers are not in the best interest of the overall kind of marketing and sales ecosystem?
So Jim, I want you to avoid the word to do. This is not about your activity. That is not the question. This is not about the work of marketing. It's the question of what is it you expect, marketing to achieve in order to impact the outcome. All right. So let me give you an example. I'm gonna, Amy, can I pick on you and use your example of launching a new product?
Sure.
Okay. So you're going to be launching a new product, let's say in 2024, for the sake of this conversation. All right. And let's say the outcome is to have, I'm going to make this up, 50 of our existing tier 1 customers adopt the product within 90 days of launch at an average order value of, I'll make this up, $100,000. I'm making these numbers up entirely. I'm sure these numbers are totally not right, but just for the sake of math, resulting in net new revenue of, help me with my math, 100,050, is that 5 million?
I think so.
Of net new revenue of $5 million. Now that's a pretty well worded outcome. 50 existing customers will adopt whatever this new product is within 90 days of launch at an average order value of $100,000, resulting in $5 million of net new revenue by the end of the first half of 2024. That's an outcome. That's a pretty well stated outcome. It's got information about who we want to buy, how many, right? We said 50 existing tier 1 customers. They could be in any vertical. We didn't say they could be only vertical, right? We said what the average order value needed to be, and we said what the net new revenue is going to be. That's a pretty nice outcome statement. Does everybody agree?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if you have outcome statements like that, awesome. If you don't, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for that kind of an outcome statement. Okay, so now, Amy, what is it they expect marketing to do in order to affect this outcome? If they don't know the answer to that, because your job is to give them the answer to that, what is it that you might do? It could be, does this, let me ask you a question. Mm-hmm. Is this a product that has samples associated with it, or trials associated with it, or anything like that?
No.
What does it have associated with it that would be an indicator of a consideration?
More probably prototype, like installing it in one place, but we don't give out free samples or things like that.
So a prototype or a request maybe to install, or a request for a prototype. Mm-hmm. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Because in the semiconductor industry, that might be a ROM code or something like that. I get it. Okay. So maybe, I'll make this up, maybe the marketing objective would be that 150 customers within our tier 1, across all our tier 1 verticals, or across all our tier 1 customers across all our verticals, request information about an install, how to do an install or pre-install, or whatever that phrasing might be. Okay, Amy, I don't know what the right language is. Within, and I'll say 30 days of launch. With, let's say, with X percent of them converting to install customers. Okay, so whatever percentage would be, we said 150, we need 50 of them. And let's say you're going to be responsible in marketing for 25% of the numbers, so, or 50% of the number, with 25 of them converting to installs within the first 90 days. Now there is a marketing objective. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Is that helpful? If you have marketing objectives framed like that, you're on your way to, as a value creator, because that's how value creators frame their marketing objectives. Now I'm making this a completely up, but maybe that's a useful example. Okay, moving on.
Laura, got a question about that.
Okay.
That outcome measure was very well constructed, and that was a kind of a business measure, and then we find out where marketing can wade into it. I'm curious, out of the group, how much of your leadership are you going to have to deliver that measurement, or are they going to have that measurement? You know, how well structured? Because it seems to me that most of the time we're going to have to figure out, we're going to have to articulate to them what this measurement is going to look like.
What the outcome is going to look like.
Sorry, the outcome, correct. The outcome is going to look like that. They're not, they appreciate those terms, but they're not thinking in those terms.
Well, you'd be surprised. They probably are not articulating them to you, but they are thinking about them. But they may not actually frame it the same way. You have to help them frame it. And that's
I think that's extreme value. I think that's a great way to demonstrate your value to leadership, is giving them something, you know, that they care about, that that everybody can get around, and they're like, yeah, okay. And then I can absolutely see how they're going to be willing to spend money to achieve that, because you're on the same page.
Right. Now you have a real conversation strategically. Mm-hmm. Can we get 50 tier 1 customers if that's what we really need? Is that the right number? Is tier 1 the right target? But the conversation significantly changes. Yeah. If you're just told, generate $5 million in revenue for this product by the end of the year, that's useless. That is a totally useless target.
That's what I was going to say. That's pretty much our target. Maybe swap out the dollar, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, no good. That's no good. You have to help them. And that's what value creators are good at. Really, really good at. Okay. All right. Now, I want you to understand that once you have the outcomes and the objectives, you are on your way of being able to build the chain. You have control over that. So I want you to understand that there is a continuum of measures, and the chain is actually constructed of measures that are related to each other. So what we have a tendency in marketing to do is create a smorgasbord of measures that fall into a variety of categories, and we share those with our leadership team. And most of the time, the leadership team does not know what any of this means. They're really happy to see measurement, but they don't know how to connect the dots, and they don't know what it means. And that's why they don't get good scores, even if they're measuring a whole bunch of things. So think of your measures in the continuum. And at the far left are things that we're going to call activity-based. And this is measures around effort, like the number of events that you put on, the number of assets you created or produced, the number of emails that you sent out, the number of social media posts that you did, the number of updates you made to the website, whatever it might be. The number of is measurement, and you say to the team, what did you do this quarter? We produced this much new collateral. We produced this much X number of new videos, whatever it might be. If that's the language you're using, you're in the world of activity measures, okay? For the leadership team, even though this is really important, and even though value creators are tracking them like everyone else, for the leadership team, these are the least useful measures, right? And there are the easiest measures for marketing to generate. All right, so we have a big disparity. They're the least useful, but the easiest to get. All right, next group is outputs. This is when we, excuse me, when we were first asked by our leadership team to be more accountable, the first measures we went to were outputs. We said, oh, we can do that. We can count things that are an output. So the result of an event might be event registrants. We put it out, created, we had this many people come to an event. We had this many people put their names in the, so we scanned this many new names when we went to a trade show. Here's how many people clicked through on an email or on an ad. Here's how many people called the 1-800 number. Here's how many press mentions we got from the number of press releases we put out, right? It's still a form of counting. It's not about the effort. It's about a result of the effort. And that's a little bit better, but it's still a measure. Some of it is metric, but again, it doesn't really show how we're moving the needle. When we stop there, our friends in finance come along and say, we can help you do a better job of measuring. And they help us create operational measures. Hold on one second, guys. These are measures around efficiency, like leads per rep or lead aging or campaign ROI or program to people ratios or cost per billing dollar or spend to head count or program to total spend or awareness to demand ratios. These are all examples of efficiency measures. If we get stuck here, if our friends in finance and others who help us get to these measures and we get stuck here, we will never be anything more than a hamster on a wheel, because what are these measures about? What are these measures about, guys? I'm from Missouri. Guys, androgynous term, right? What are these about? These are all about more with less. More with less. If you get stuck here, you will end up seeing yourself in the world of do more with less. So the value creators figured that out a long time ago, and they said they jumped up to outcome-based measures. And we saw that they're not all that great on the leading indicators either, but we will come back to those in a moment. There are some they're actually good at, they just don't do enough of them. So this is about effectiveness and impact. Things like market share, category ownership, lifetime value, customer acquisition rate, customer retention rates, customer referral rates. Those are product adoption rates, even a share of wallet. They're all outcome-based, but some of these outcome-based actually jump to the next category. So think about it for a moment. Imagine that you are tracking rate of growth versus the market. And your rate of growth versus the market is moving to the right. You following me? Mm-hmm. If your rate of growth is moving to the right, your category ownership and or your market share is moving to the right. It's a leading indicator. Mm-hmm. If your share of wallet number, that is the amount of business you're doing with a specific customer, whether they're buying more of an existing product or more of your products in general, is moving to the right, your customer lifetime value is moving to the right. If your customer footprint expansion is growing, that is, now I was working in this part of the company, and now I've got the opportunity to work in this part of the company and get more business inside that customer. I'm expanding my footprint inside that company. If that number is moving to the right, what's happening to customer lifetime value? It's moving to the right. Mm-hmm. What's happening to category ownership? It's moving to the right. What's happening to, right? Everything's right. So there are really valuable measures, and they are marketing measures. That is a great measure for marketing because it tells us how competitive we are. If we're growing faster than the market, that means we're growing faster than our competitors. So it's a great competitive measure. Okay. All right, so I want to show you how, so if you had these examples, like the number of lead magnet downloads, what kind of measure is that? X number of lead magnet downloads, what measure is that? What do you think? Where would you put it on the continuum?
Outputs?
Yes, great job, Stacey, well done. How about email campaign open and click-through rates?
Output.
I agree, exactly. How about the number of new pieces of long and short content that you create?
Activity.
Yes. How about interactions per unique user, a website number?
Output.
Output. How about event attendance?
Output.
Yes. And X number of new leads?
Output.
Yes. So do those look like measures that you might be familiar with? And they're all below operational, right? So that's why we have to fix it. Okay. So here is an example. Imagine this is the outcome. Secure some number of net new orders from B customer segment, whatever segment it is. You have you have your customer and markets divided into segments, and this is a particular segment in order to achieve some % growth in market share for a particular product. And you also want to grow your category ownership of that for that product to Y%. Okay, that's a statement. You can fill in the blank. I'm giving you the recipe. Fill in the blank. Now, what is our objective for that? Well, for this company, it might be improved trial rate among tier 1B segment customers by X% for this platform, resulting in some number of RFQs. Okay? All right. So that is a formula. It doesn't have to be hard. It's a formula. You can change this. Just always start with a verb. All these statements always start with a verb. And this is what we're going to be. So what are the things we're going to be looking at? We're going to have a trial rate for this segment. So this is a trial rate for this segment. I'm tracking that. I want for this platform, whatever the product is, and this is what I'm looking at, RFQs. And I'm going to tie those three numbers over here to net new orders, market share, and category ownership. Following me? Now, the rest of my plan might be things like this. Maybe I'm going to train some customer ambassadors who are going to tout the new platform and at least 3 potential targets to help me get this number. So maybe I have a program. So I've got some kind of strategy tied to that. And then I've got some tactics down here, way down here, like some online activities that are going to get greater than 90% customer engagement from 5,000 customers touched and produce 50 potential customer ambassadors. So I can see how my relationship is between the things on the bottom that's driving the things on the top. Am I losing you guys? Or are you with me?
Yeah.
I'm following you.
Okay. And that's how you begin to create the secret weapon. But it starts at the top with the outcome. All right. Your chains tell your story. They help you help your leadership team understand your value, your impact, and your contribution. And they foster decisions. They help you to set your strategy, your tactics, and your investments. Right? They are the secret weapon of the value creator. Whether they call them that or not, that's what you can do. I can take any plan that's sent to us to review and immediately tell whether or not there are chains there. Some of them might have chains that are kind of kludgy, not very clean. Others have no chains. It's not hard to pick them out. All right. Remember, good chains have 2 components. They have both logic and math. Logic clarifies, math quantifies. The logic takes the analysis you've done and makes sure that it makes sense. These measures, this chain makes sense. These links are logical. These measures are logical. And then the math is, yes, if I have the math, that math will produce the numbers, right? And you ask yourself, can we do that math? So if we need 50, let's say 50 existing customers in tier 1 to adopt the product, but we only have 50 customers in tier 1, our math does not work.
Yep.
Because we are not going to get 100% of them to adopt the new product. Nothing like that's going to happen. And if we have 50 net existing customers in tier 1 to adopt, then we have 5,000 existing customers, right? That's 1%. Okay, is 1% good enough? Is that the right number? Now we can have a conversation about the math. You see? So logic and math. The logic may be there, but we might need to have a conversation about the math. Logic chains and are the foundation of every measurable plan, and they should be written in customer-centric terms. Okay, where do they come from? Right? People say to me all the time, Laura, how do I make these chains? I want to make them. This makes so much sense to me. Well, they come from your plan. Start with your plan. If your plan is built with chains in mind, you will be able to craft them. It will come. And now the first time you try to do it, it's just going to feel like a whole new, like, it's like you've never done ballet before and you go to a ballet class. I mean, for me, that would be just excruciating. Okay. So that's kind of what it feels like for those of us who've ever been to a ballet class, which I have been to one. That was enough. All right. Remember that you'll need some other measures on your, when we get to the dashboard, because your chains will give you insight into a certain set of measures, but they won't probably have those operational measures that some people are going to want. So you're going to need to think about some kind of efficiency or productivity measure. You're going to need something related to money, because the CFO wants to know about the money. So you're going to need some kind of measure related to that. And you want to be sure that everything that you're doing is keeping what we call the train on the track.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do this, you will end up with a dashboard that looks more like this. You see, the chain is there, right? So this company had up here a market share, revenue, profit, and margin. The thing that's driving market share will be preference. So they're calling brand preference. How many of you have heard that before? We need more brand preference or something like that. Not awareness, preference. All right. So they have some kind of preference number. And then marketing down here has a share of voice against the competition. We're going to get to, in order to drive preference, marketing is going to move the needle on increasing the share of voice versus the competition in the marketplace. And then they have down here some other things. This has got some social media stuff and a bunch of other things down here that are in their strategy and programs. And then below that, they have tactics and activities. But you can begin to see they pulled it from their plan, right? This, by the way, this is on our website, this picture. Okay, so where I'm taking you is that, remember, one of the things they're better at is dashboards. They are still have room for improvement, but compared to their colleagues, right? Our friends in the campaign producer category are down in the 30%, and our friends in the sales enabler category are in the 50, pushing maybe a couple of places close to 60%. And in our folks in the value creators, they are in, the upper 60s, mid 70s, or their things. So they have better alignment, right? They produce better dashboards. As a result, their alignment is better. They can analyze performance of campaigns better. They can track measures in real time. They have C-suite marketing contribution to the business. They get it. The C-suite gets it. That's much better. They can enable the C-suite to make decisions. The C-suite can now make better decisions when they're asked for questions, and they're still struggling a little bit, but they are better at getting the money. Okay? Because you still have a lot of companies that want the budget to be a percentage of sales or a percentage of revenue, and they're stuck there, as opposed to what is it really going to take to move the needle? That's the real question, not what's the percentage of sales or the percentage of revenue for marketing. The real question is, we need 50 tier 1 customers to buy this, adopt this product in this time frame at this average order value. How much money are we willing to spend to get that? That's the real question. Not what is the percentage of revenue or sales, but how much money. That's $5 million. Now, are you willing to spend $5 million to get that number? Because if you don't have those customers, your company will disappear. Are you willing to spend $10 million? Because if you do, you'll wipe out all your competition. Are you willing to only spend $2 million? And can you get to $5 million with that? See where I'm going? Mm-hmm. That's the conversation. That's the budget conversation.
Yeah. And the thing is that the clarity of the outcome that we're trying to do, that to me is one of the just consistently weak points when dealing with leadership, is getting a clear outcome. And if we can get better at helping them understand that, then you can have those kind of conversations.
Yes.
It's good.
So our patent, which Drew was so kind to mention, is based on a software application known as Excellence. And it is a planning. It's an alignment accountability application that allows you to do planning and performance management. And what it enables you to do is create plans that look like this. Because if you can create a plan like this, everybody can see the relationship between tactics and activities and outcomes. It's visually there. So what our application does is create this visual linkage between money and activity and business results. And then it allows you to pull out those chains and actually will give you the first pass. There's sort of a framework for a dashboard that looks not like what I showed you, that example from that customer, but looks more like this application.
Laura, where do we go to access that?
So if you're on the website, if you go to the website underneath YVEM, there should be a tab that's called Proven Frameworks, or a drop down called Proven Frameworks. Is somebody on the site right now?
You know what? I will find that link and
I'll show it to you. I'll show you before we leave. I'll show it to you.
Yeah, we got about 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, we're done. So basically what I'm saying here is this is how the value creators are better. So this is their competency, and this is how they're better. 4 times better, 4.5 times better. I mean, you can read these, but it's a huge difference in better. They're better at operational stuff. They're better at improving effectiveness. They're better at decisions. They're better at making course adjustments. They're better at determining which customers are at risk. They're just better because of how they are setting up their performance management. Okay, everybody wants to improve, but let me tell you something. The performance management folks, they are passionate about performance management. I mean, the value creator folks are passionate about performance management. They all are committed to doing it. See our friends in Campaign, they're getting better because they're being forced to get better, right? And the value creators, they actually have a plan. They put a plan in place to improve. So they have a plan for the plan. It's all about the data. Start there. If you don't know where to start there, because that is the underpinnings of all things. And there's really 10 steps. So the very first step is identify 3 to 5 business outcomes for the coming year. Don't pass go until you know those. Don't do anything till you know those. And if you have to make them up for them and get them then to recast them for you, that's okay. Understand the metrics. Take a look at your measures and figure out where they fit on the continuum right now. How many of your measures are down at the output and activity level? Is it 1%, 10%, 90%? How many of those do you really need? Because they're not helping you, right? So take stock. Come up with a mapping process. You can use ours. We have a workbook for do-it-yourselfers on creating a customer-centric measurable plan. It's like, I don't know, it's under $200, right? We have all different ways to help people be successful here. We have a slew of blog posts. Look for where your gaps are in the chains. If you try to take your plan, one of a fun exercise is take our 2023 plan and see if you can make chains and see where the holes are. It's a really fun exercise, and a lot of people find themselves in a ditch pretty quick. Mm-hmm. If you don't own your data, find out where the data is and make friends, make really good friends with the data owners. We've changed how you report. We have a lot of people that put together monthly activity reports. They're either a monthly status report or an activity report. Some people would have a monthly or quarterly review. Revise how you report, because people pay attention when you change what you say. Like all of a sudden, this doesn't look like what you used to send us. That's right. Let me tell you what I've changed and why. Now you can start a conversation. If you need systems and tools, let's see if you can explore them. This is a skill, folks. So up-leveling the skills on your team. And really, if you have a team and they're a team of campaign producers and sales enablers, you might have to do some culture work. Okay, that's the end. We do have a book. It's not about measurement. My last book is Fast Track Your Business, which is really takes our circle of traction framework and tells you what that is and how to do it. There is a book that was called Metrics in Action, but I think you're better off not spending your money on that book. If you desperately want that book, I don't think it's available. Send me a note and I'll mail you a copy because I think the report that you can get for free is just as good, okay? If not better at this point. All right, I'm done. I'd like to know if you have questions. I'd like to know if you have taken away a new idea or something that you're going to do differently. And if you have, to write those things down, because I know that I do better if I write something down. I'm more likely to do something about it than if I don't. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking.
Okay, so let's talk about observations, applications, and or questions from this presentation. There was a lot in there, and the whole time I'm processing how I apply this, how do I apply that? And you know, my head's a little spinning there, but just the need to really map down the processes is, I have processes, but I haven't mapped them. And that leads to lack of performance. And so that was one of my many key takeaways.